At times they were kind, they were polite in their sophistication, smiling but never too loudly, acting in civilized manner, an illusion of gentleness, always fighting to get their way. While the people see, the people know, the people wait, the people say, the closing of your doors will never shut us out. The closing of your doors can only shut you in. We know the predator. We see them feed on us. We are aware to starve the beast is our destiny. The times they were kind, they were polite, but never honest. We see your technological society devour you before your very eyes. We hear your anguished cries exalting greed through progress. While you seek material advances, the sound of flowers dying carry messages through the wind trying to tell you about balance and your safety. But your minds are chained to your machines and the strings dangling from your puppeteer's hands, turning you, twisting you into forms and confusions beyond your control. Your mind for a job, your mind for a TV, your mind for a hairdryer, your mind for consumption. With your atom bombs, your material bombs, your drug bombs, your racial bombs, your class bombs, your sexist bombs, your ageist bombs, devastating your natural shelters, making you homeless on earth, chasing you into illusions, fooling you, making you pretend you can run away from the ravishing of your spirit, while the sound of flowers dying carry messages through the wind, trying to tell you about balance and your safety, trying to isolate us in a dimension called loneliness, leading us into the trap, believe in their power, but not in ourselves, piling us with guilt, always taking the blame, greed chasing out the balance, trying to isolate us in a dimension called loneliness, economic deity seizing power, through illusions created, armies are justified, class systems are democracy, God listens to warmongers' prayers, tyranny is here, divide and conquer, trying to isolate us in a dimension called loneliness, greed a parent, insecurity the happiness companion, genocide conceived in sophistication, technologic material civilization, a rationalization, replacing a way to live, trying to isolate us in a dimension called loneliness. To God, we hope you don't mind, but we would like to talk to you. There are some things we need to straighten out. It's about these Christians. They claim to be from your nation, but man, you should see the things they do all the time, blaming it on you. Manifest destiny, genocide, maximize profit, sterilization, raping the earth, lying, taking more than they need in all the forms of the greed. We ask them why. They say it's God's will. Damn God, they make it so hard. Remember Jesus? Would you send him back to them? Tell them not to kill him. Rather they should listen. Stop abusing his name and yours. We do not mean to be disrespectful, but you know how it is. Our people have their own ways. We never even heard of you until not long ago. Your representative spoke magnificent things of you, which we were willing to believe. But from the way they acted, we know you and we were being deceived. We do not mean you or your Christian children any bad, but you all came to take all we had. We have not seen you, but we have heard so much. It is time for you to decide what life is worth. We already remember, but maybe you forgot. Look at us. Look at us. We are of earth and water. Look at them. It is the same. Look at us. We are suffering all these years. Look at them, they are connected. Look at us, we are in pain. Look at them, surprised at our anger. Look at us, we are struggling to survive. Look at them, expecting sorrow be benign. Look at us, we are the ones called pagan. Look at them on their arrival. Look at us, we are called subversive. Look at them, descending from name callers. Look at us, we wept sadly in the long dark. Look at them, hiding in technologic light. Look at us, we buried the generations. Look at them, inventing the body count. Look at us, we are older than America. Look at them, chasing a fountain of youth. Look at us, we are embracing earth. Look at them, clutching today. Look at us, we are living in the generations. Look at them, existing in jobs and debt. Look at us, we have escaped many times. Look at them, they cannot remember. Look at us, we are healing. Look at them, their medicine is patented. Look at us, we are trying. Look at them, what are they doing? Look at us, we are children of earth. Look at them, who are they?
Bon tarde, Aquaba. Welcome. Happy Sunday. We hope you are well on this Sunday, and we hope you are arriving or have already arrived at your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual health, your zenith, and that you are doing well, and that all of your loved ones and all the peace and justice loving people on earth are doing well today. We welcome you to this 156th episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a program sponsored each Sunday, same time, same place by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We're honored and excited to be here today to share with you the topic, creating revolutionary families in a reactionary society, creating revolutionary families in a reactionary society. So we're so happy to be here. We start, as we always do, by giving honor and respect to the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere, whose land we sit on today and whose principled struggle to regain their lands back gives us inspiration. And we honor and respect them in that struggle, and 100% solidarity with them in achieving that objective of returning these lands, their lands, to them. And we honor our African ancestors, the masses of African people who refuse to accept oppression, who refuse to accept demoralization and a lack of dignity among our people, and who have stood up and have paid a tremendous price, a price that is not measured or equal, that isn't superseded by anybody else on earth. And so we honor our ancestors all the way from Eastern Africa, across the continent of our homeland, Africa, across the Middle Passage of the Atlantic Ocean, all the way here throughout the Western Hemisphere. We honor our ancestors and for what they have sacrificed so that we could be here today. And we only ask them to be patient with us as we continue to understand what we have to do to live out the legacy in an honorable fashion, the way they intended. And so we thank you again for joining us. And we start, as we always do, just by introducing ourselves properly. Our Ancestors' Voices is, as we said, it's a program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party each Sunday, one of many programs that we sponsor, the AAPRP. And the APRP is a revolutionary independent mass Pan-African political party, which is based in Africa. We say that every week, but I just feel like most people still don't really have much of a clue as to what that means. So we will continue to try to break it down to the best of our ability. But it's really something that you really will never truly understand until you're engaged in struggle yourself on any level, any organized struggle yourself on some level. That's the only way you can truly understand what a organization dedicated to fighting for justice is doing, whatever their platform is. But for us, when we say independent mass Pan-African party, we say that all people of African descent are Africans and belong to the African nation. It has nothing to do with where they live, where they were born, what language they speak, what food they like, what music they listen to, what they know or don't know, how conscious or ignorant they are. It has nothing to do with any of those factors. It only has to do with the fact that no matter where we are on the planet Earth, we are there today because Africa has been attacked and has continued to be attacked over the last 530 years. And the reason why Africa has been attacked is because the basis of wealth for the capitalist world has come from robbing Africa blind. And the only way that that process can continue untethered is if the masses of African people are convinced that we are everything else except who we really are, which is Africans and who belong to the African nation. So our objective is to go to the root of that and organize our people all over the world to liberate our mother, Africa. And so that's what Pan-Africanism is, the total liberation and unification of Africa under one continental scientific socialist government. One unified socialist Africa. That's what we're fighting for on the ground all over the world. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism, we outline in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which you see the cover displayed on your screen if you have one. And in that book, Nkrumah lays out the strategy to unite all of the revolutionary Pan-African formations who agree with the objective of one unified socialist Africa and who were dedicated to struggling on the ground to achieve this objective. And we have quite a number of organizations who fit that criteria and who are working together, all of us, to achieve that objective of Pan-Africanism. You won't see it on CNN, you won't see it on CIA network, but that's as Gil Scott Heron told us many years ago, that the real revolution is not going to be on their networks anyway. So that's the work that we're doing. And Our Ancestors' Voices, one of many programs we host in the APRP. This particular one is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu Umi, and Shakura Umi, my biological and ideological daughter. So to get us started with this week's topic, creating and nurturing revolutionary families in a reactionary society, I will turn it over to Shakura.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So greetings, everyone. We hope that you are well. First and foremost, we are in the last day of April, and so we want to remind folks there are so many rituals that we have coming up in the month of May, as well as in the other part of the summer for the African People's Revolutionary Party, the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And so one of the biggest events that we host is African Liberation Day. And so, yes, we are still asking for donations, especially because African Liberation Day is literally about 20 days or so around the corner. Now, of course, we have several events, some that are in person and have different dates, and our virtual broadcasts, which will be very close to those dates, usually around the third week or so near Memorial Day. But we want to make sure that we encourage you all to consider donating if you can. If you haven't already, please do so. We've talked in repeated forms about all the different bills, if you will, that need to be settled up for ALD to take place, be it virtually or in person, be it on the continent or in Canada or another part of the world. We have an event going on in Germany, I think my dad said last week. And so that's speaker fees. People are traveling to these events and they need travel money to get to these events. We have to pay for hospitality items. Some of the speakers need to make sure that they have an honorarium to take back to their organizations because they are speaking on behalf of their organizations for African Liberation Day, because we are in solidarity with them and vice versa. We also have translating services because, as he just pointed out, we have our base homeland of in Mother Africa. And so unfortunately, because of colonization, we need to be able to translate in Portuguese. We need to be able to translate in Spanish. We need to be able to translate in French and other languages, which means we need to have people who are paid and who can be able to communicate what needs to be done and translate the message so that it can still get across to those who need to hear it. We also need to actually raise money because our on the ground home events are the most biggest, and we try our best to send them as much resources monetarily and otherwise as possible so that they can have what they need to take off and be able to have a successful event on the continent. And we know, based on colonization, but also neocolonialism and other forms of imperialism, depending on who colonized the country, it might make it harder for them to have resources such as internet, stable internet, and things of that nature. So we do the best we can to help support our comrades to be able to do those things. And in some cases, we're even mailing them some of the awards, because a lot of our award recipients for African Liberation Day are usually at home in Africa. And so again, we just ask that you consider donating, whether it's printing cost or even the paper to print the award that is handed to the recipient. These things take a lot of time and effort, and usually it's very expensive. And so please, please, please donate to www.abetterworld.me. Again, you can feel free to send your donations to www.abetterworld.me. And so this is probably one of my favorite seminar topics that we've done since we've started this. And I think the reason it's one of my favorites is because for those of us who are not in an organization that's working for justice, we may not be able to necessarily wrap our heads around how it's possible for one to be considered an organizer, if you will, but to also continue to try to build humanistic norms that we as humans enjoy having. So I think that there's this facade that's put out that if you are an organizer, then you don't have time for anything but the struggle. And that might be true for some people, but for a lot of us, if we are in organizations that are working for justice, then we know that that's simply not true, because it is quite exhausting to just invest your time and energy into building up these organizations, to helping to advance the movements for people so that we as a humanity and we as a group of folks can organize to help others. You know, we're constantly thinking about how our actions and our choices and our language and our words, how they may not be inclusive to everyone, especially colonized people. We're thinking about ways that we can address things. We're constantly making choices not to celebrate capitalistic holiday. Like there are so many laborious tasks that a true organizer has to consider on a day-to-day basis. Even the type of language we speak when we're at our jobs or in the grocery store, little things like not saying that you're going home, because that would imply that we accept that America is our home, right? So when people say to me, "Are you at home?" I say, "I am at my apartment. That's where I am. I am not at home, because home is in Africa somewhere," right? Or "Are you headed home?" Right? Or if you're trying to schedule a meeting with someone, being mindful and not saying, "Are you free on Thursday?" Because that would imply that we are not under arrest and that Mother Africa can control her own resources based on how she sees fit. And that's simply not the case. And so to be able to be mindful of those kind of things is a very laborious task. It is very laborious. And so that's why I'm saying a true organizer would understand that you can't just focus on the organization and you can't just focus on the struggle, because at some point that's going to burn you out. And at some point you're going to be too tired physically and mentally and ideologically. And so that's why we have this seminar, because we understand that you need to still have normative things in your life as a human being. You still need to drink water. You still need to work out. You still need to get an adequate amount of sleep every night. You still need to engage with other people. You might consider yourself an introvert, but that doesn't mean you cut off all communication with other people, because as human beings, we are attracted to one another in terms of connecting, social conversations, but also just literally having things in common, being able to talk to one another. And some of that can be addressed when we see each other at work study or ALD, for example. But in a lot of spaces, sometimes that needs to be addressed even outside of these struggle events, because you can give your brain a break and be able to still engage in your values. And I think that's truly, truly, truly what the topic tonight is all about, is how do you stay true to your values without always pushing a very difficult line, or if you consider yourself militant, pushing a very militant line, and then not really allowing yourself to enjoy the other parts of life that are truly a benefit because of all the work you're doing for the struggle, but also giving yourself time to rest and recuperate and recharge so that you can still be ready to do the work for the struggle, right? And so, that means understanding that, yes, we live in a capitalist society, but that also means understanding that you don't have to let capitalism win. Again, committing to your values, but still holding true to what relationships matter to you. I'm sure my dad is going to talk in a few slides about not celebrating the ritual holidays that are coming up that are very capitalistic in nature, but at the same time, finding a way to hold your values true and to show examples of what your values are to other people who may have a normative practice of celebrating those rituals that are capitalistic. And then when you engage with them with your values that are dishonoring capitalism and instead honoring those folks who have lost their lives because of whatever the holiday is, or those folks who are dismembered or are raped or murdered or killed, or their land was stolen, or whatever the purpose of the holiday is, you bringing that to the light, you bringing that to the center, you allowing everybody else there to acknowledge that this is a day of death, this is a day of whatever it is, and just acknowledging that. And we've talked in so many times before about, if you do that, people are not going to say that was a horrible thing you just did, because deep down they know that it's a day of death. They know that it's a day of a land being stolen. They know that it's a day filled with capitalist greed and corporation. They know that because they're not just driving around for the first time around the block, but there's not enough rituals that encourage us to resist capitalism. So instead, it's attractive for us to just, quote, go with the flow, because we don't have the courage, if we're not in an organization. Usually organizations will help build this up, but we don't really have the courage, if we're not in an organization, to fight back and to resist, right? And so we don't really understand that it's okay to do that. We don't really understand it's okay to not celebrate capitalist greedy holidays. It's okay. And it's okay to still find a way to honor your relationships. If you are in relationships with people who celebrate those capitalist greedy holidays, you can still honor them and celebrate them and still stay true to your values, right? And we're going to talk about some examples of that. But I think first I need to kind of give us some intro background into just reminding us how difficult it is to resist capitalism. But that means acknowledging the system we live in, and then still finding a way to stay true to who you are, still finding a way to get the message out, that whatever the holiday is supposedly celebrating, it's actually not based on truth. It's actually not celebrating what it's supposed to celebrating, or maybe it is, but at the cost of what? At the cost of celebrating all the lives that were also killed for those people to be celebrated, right? At the cost of acknowledging that so many people were not even mentioned and being a part of this trap that allowed this person to become president. If you're celebrating President's Day, for example, or Memorial Day, what does that really mean? The 4th of July, why do we have fireworks and celebrate the independence of America when we all know that it's based on the backs of colonized people, specifically the indigenous people? And the holiday that's coming up just this Friday, what does that holiday really mean? Does it mean to go out and get drunk with your friends? Does it mean to make a mockery of indigenous culture? Or does it actually mean to understand that the indigenous people fought to keep their land so that they could achieve independence? Like, really understanding what these holidays mean. And I think if you're doing that, then you can start to unpack other things that have been pushed down our throats that we need to do. Like, if you unpack what the 4th of July really means, then that means you should also unpack what the national anthem is really about. And really start to think about the lyrics that you are singing. Now, I don't know about you, but I listen to lyrics before I start singing songs, because I personally, as a cis, marginalized, differently abled African woman, I can't afford to be singing a song that bashes a femme or women identifying people. I mean, I'd have to be out of my mind to do that. So I have to really listen carefully to these songs. I have to listen carefully not to sing lyrics that celebrate differently able people as being ableist or celebrating ableism. I can't afford to do that. So if we're doing that with typical music, mainstream genre, then we should be doing it with the national anthem. We should be doing it with the Pledge of Allegiance. We should be doing it with all of these ritual, routine, and written things that we were quote taught to accept and to quote celebrate. But really, there are some serious contradictions within these poems and these songs and with these bases of these holidays. But we're going to have to understand that in a little bit more clear identity. So again, understanding that there's a way to celebrate what your family is doing and to celebrate family, to celebrate meaning, but to also have this background where you're enthrusting your political education and asking other people to just come on board with you and to acknowledge what the day truly means by breaking it down, and then finding some type of way to honor those lost at the forefront of the holiday. You know, so we have some examples that we're going to share about on Thanksgiving. We have some examples that we're going to share about what to do on July 4th. We have some examples about how you can, you know, find a way to decapitalize Valentine's Day, but still have a way to honor whoever that special person is in your life, to decapitalize Mother's Day, to decapitalize Father's Day. You know, some of the best things you can do on these capitalist holidays is not spend money, because that's what protects capitalism. So we have to like kind of pull from, you know, our ancestors a little bit and go back to making gifts, go back to thinking about creative ways to send gift ideas to people. You know, lately I've been really tapping into writing poems. Now, I'm not Maya Angelou by any means, but I think my poems are pretty good and they come from the heart. And I have fun writing them, right? And so just finding a way to do that. You can write a poem for somebody, you can type it up, or you can literally type it up on the typewriter, and you can buy a $10 frame at Walgreens and put it in a frame for someone. If you can't afford a frame, you can make a frame by getting some ribbon and gluing it on it. But there's different ways to be creative and to still express how you care about someone while still taking into account that we don't necessarily have to honor capitalism in order to do that. Next slide, please. So if you are taking on this big job where you understand that your objective is to de-center capitalism with these holidays, right? With these corporate holidays, then that means that you're in a position where you're going to take a risk. And you might find that some people are not going to like the risk you're taking. As I said, choosing not to use words like "we're going home," or choosing not to use words like I know that I need to be at home, and you know, did you do your homework if you're talking to someone who is still in school? Things like that. That's risky because a lot of people they're not going to work that hard to go around capitalism. You know what I mean? And so you have to understand like who you're up against. You have to understand what you're coming up against. To me, it's the same thing as choosing to say African when we live in a world where people typically say Black. And so you're constantly saying African. And what I found is that people around you who didn't used to say African are now going to start saying African more because you're consistent with it. But that's the catcher though. You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. If you decide to take a stand and not celebrate corporate America capitalist holidays, then you have to always take that stand. You have to always be about that. You have to always stand up for that, because that's how people are going to learn. Not only are you consistent, but the message you're sending is consistent. Because the objective is, you know, you're celebrating these holidays because I guess the idea is we're thinking that things are going to change. Like, for example, this year is the first year that Juneteenth will be a holiday, right? So I guess we're thinking that people are going to actually acknowledge that what happened to Africans was atrocious beyond measure. There are people who still believe that slavery should still be existing. So Juneteenth is not even representative, first of all, of what truly happened and what's based on truth. But beyond that, it's not like slavery just ended once Juneteenth became a national holiday in America. There are still enslaved people in the world to this day. So again, like, these holidays are not even based off of truth. They're not even based off of global impact. They're American centered, which is the biggest problem in the world, because America is based on idiocy, and it is based on rape, and it is based on lies, and it is based on theft. of resources, land, people, kidnapping of people. Like, that's the country that is celebrating these things, you all. And if you are celebrating these things that the country is celebrating, then you ecto facto are celebrating this country, which means you are supporting what this country has done and violated so many people over the years. And that's simply not okay. It is simply not okay. It is not okay. So we ask you, if you decide to take a stand, because it's risky, but the other part is, if you don't take a stand, then you're just going to continue to celebrate America and capitalism, and that hasn't gotten us very far, right? We still know that people are still being shot down in the street. We still know that people are still being robbed. We still know that people are still being kidnapped. How many African trans people are being kidnapped just today, just alone this week? And we don't even know, because we don't even know who they are. And we don't even know where they went or if they're alive, right? So we know that these things are still happening. So if you take a risk and stand up and say, you know what, I am not going to celebrate the 4th of July this year, then that's the first step. But you can still find a way to engage with your family. You can still find a way to engage with your partner. You can still find a way to engage with your animal, if that's who you choose to spend that day with. You can acknowledge that you can bring value and commitment to that holiday, and it does not have to be celebrated in a way that is of admiration and appreciation of the holiday, because the holiday is toxic and tainted, right? But that's where your values come in, where you actually increase your political education, you do a little research, and then you bring that research to whoever you're sharing with, so that everybody can be on the same page of how horrid the 4th of July really is, or how horrid on Thanksgiving really is, how horrid Memorial Day really is, all these different things that are happening and taking place, right? And so just finding a way to make that decision, and justifying to your family why this is important to you. That would be your values, right? Helping them to understand a little piece of you, and then finding a way to maybe have them and participate, because you don't just want to be lecturing at them. We want to be collectively engaging in this revamp, if you will, of how to celebrate this. And let me just say, before I turn it back to my dad, we ask that you donate to the African Liberation Day Fund. So a www.abetterworld.me, www.abetterworld.me. But beyond that, you don't just have to take a stand with the imperialist holidays. You can take a stand and invite your family to African Liberation Day. You can take a stand and invite your family to one of these things. If they're insisting that you come for Resurrection Day for dinner, then you can insist that they celebrate and log into African Liberation Day, because we want to make sure that we are committing to our principles and our values with everything. And if your family is seeing ALD as a contradiction, then that's a great opportunity for you to engage with them in something new, and to let them see for themselves what it's all about, right? And so again, we just ask that you consider what it means to be on a fence where you actually are acknowledging truth and humanity and principles. Because I guarantee you, if you think closely about all of these holidays, none of them are based off of that. Ashe.
Ashe, obrigada. Thank you very much, Shakur. And that's exactly what we want to say. The message that you're giving here is the correct one. And we want to just reiterate it for the remaining time that we have today, that this process and this topic that we have today, it's not just about you as an individual saying, okay, I'm gonna say this, and this is what it's going to be. This is way deeper than that. This is about what Kwame Nkrumah talked about. He talked about it as it relates to the African Revolution, but in his book, Consciousism, he talks about the process to create the new African human being, because he recognized that we're going to need a new people to create a new world. We cannot be the same people that we are now, who have been dominated by capitalism, and expect to be a people who can build a new type of society. So we have to recognize that. And I want to say again, we're struggling in the APRP, and struggle is being said as a positive thing, to create new institutions. So we do invite you to support African Liberation Day. Betterworld.me, www.abetterworld.me. Donate what you can. We have African Liberation Days happening all over the African continent, and we have to create funding for those on the ground throughout Africa. So please help us do that. Please, many of you have. We thank you for what you contributed, and we ask you to spread the word and get other people engaged in this. So let's talk about, once you decide that you want to do something different, you don't want to just be going through the motions in this backward society. You really make the decision. You want to be a different type of person, and you want to ensure that the people around you have something more positive to organize their lives around. There are certain elements to that you have to create. You have to make sure, number one, like Shakur said, that the things that you're doing them consistently. And this is the thing that I've seen throughout my whole life, is that people don't practice consistency. We're one way, and then we're totally different. The next time you see is totally different. It amazes me, because I started out in Pan-African politics when I was 17. I'm 61 now, and I've been consistent with trying to do the best I can over the years to contribute to that political environment. And I see people, in that 40 plus years, you run into a lot of people. You have people in your life for a period of time, and they're not there anymore. You see them later on, that happens. That's part of life. And it never ceases to amaze me. Like, I'll see people who, they started out with me at some phase during that period, and they were involved in this. And then I see them 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years later, and now they're, something totally different. They're into business and they're into religion, whatever the case may be. And they can be in whatever they want to be. I really don't care. But what's interesting to me is that the conversation is always, you're still doing that Pan-African stuff? And my response is, yeah, remember when we committed to do that for our lives? Like, I don't understand how you could abandon when the problem that got us into that in the first place is still here, and worse, if anything. So why would you change? And, I got into an argument not long ago with someone, and they were like talking to me about the virtues of their religion. And I'm like, you could talk for the next 25 hours. Like, you're not going to move me 1 inch, because what you believe has done nothing to advance humanity. You can't even point to anything it's done to advance humanity. I can point to all kinds of things that the work that we're doing is doing to push humanity forward. So you got to be consistent, you all. You got to, I know it's hard for some of us, because we're just wishy-washy people. But the first thing you have to do, if you want to see change in society, you got to decide you're going to change yourself. And you have to say, I'm going to be consistent with what I'm going to believe in and what I'm going to do. And you have to, a big part of that is, it's important to create healthy boundaries with everyone. Like, for example, if you, as Shakur said, you decide, I want to live my life based on principles that place humanity above money. That's all you're saying. You want to do that, and you want to contribute to an organization, and you're doing that because you can't do any of this by yourself. So let's say that right away. You can't make any of these changes by yourself. The capitalist system is the strongest propaganda mechanism on the planet Earth, and you're just an individual who's already heavily propagandized by capitalism, whether you know it or not, or believe it or not. It's true, you are. So to think that you can combat that by yourself is just a fantasy like Disney. You have to be involved in something collective that is inspiring you to continue, because other people are doing the same thing that you're doing. So you have to create healthy boundaries in this collective process. So if you decide, like, I want to make sure that I am engaging in anti-capitalist, pro-human behavior, then you have to be consistent with that, meaning that there's gonna have to be some sacrifices you make. By sacrifices, we mean you're gonna encounter things that are gonna require you to stand on principle. And when you live your life and you begin to stand on principle, you're gonna lose people. You are going to lose people. And I'm not just talking about family and friends. People are going to look at you a certain way. People are going to be intimidated by you. And the reason why this happens, you all, is that a large percentage of people in society, they don't stand for anything. They don't stand for a damn thing. It's like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. That's a whole lot of people in this world today. So they're not going to respond positively to you standing up to principle, because that shines the spotlight on them and how corrupt their lifestyle is and how, meaningless and shallow their lifestyle is. So people are not going to respond to you by saying, you're a person of principle. Nobody's ever going to say that to you. You're a person of principle. You're a person that lives on values of justice. Nobody is going to say that to you. So you've got to understand that. That's why you have to recognize that you have to be engaged in collective struggle to do this, because you cannot maintain that by yourself, because it's too much. It's overwhelming for any one person to sustain that on their own. That's why the reason why I can sustain what I sustain is because I know I have an organization of people who believe in the same principles and that we're fighting this fight together. There's no way I could do this by myself. So you have to establish boundaries, and the strength you're going to get to establish those boundaries is based on the inspiration you get from the collective struggle. And those boundaries that doesn't mean that you're perfect and you're never going to make a mistake. We're not talking about that. But when we say boundaries, that means that you have to at least decide that you are going to stand up for what's right. So when you experience life, like you get invited to the dinners on these reactionary holidays, yeah, you go. We're not advocating that you wage war against your families, but you go with a sense of purpose. So you have to think through, like, how can I have an effective appearance at this so that I'm not just going along with, what they're doing. How can you do that? You got to think all that through. And that's why it's also, again, important to have organization, because your organization will have strategies that can help you do that. You can't do all that on your own. That's not real, you all. So you have to make sure everybody is comfortable with how, or that you're comfortable with how to address people and ensure they respect your boundaries and respect what you're doing in your life. And that's going to take time. You have to recognize that. It's not going to happen overnight, because all these years you've been living reactionary. You've been living like everybody else. So, when you come to say, hey, I'm trying to do some different things, people are not going to accept that overnight, because that requires them to make a change. And people don't want to change. They want to do what's more comfortable for them. So they're not going to react positively initially to that. The only way that they're ever going to respond positively is, again, once you demonstrate a consistent effort to live your life a certain way. That's how they learn to respect it, is because you're consistent with it. And so you have to recognize that, and you can't enforce, this moral imperative if you're not respected as being a moral person. So it starts with you. It starts with you. You have to make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to ensure that people respect the lifestyle you're talking about. What does that mean? Well, you have to start making people more important than profit in your life. Like, you can't be a dude, for example, and say, yeah, I'm for revolution, I'm for creating a just society, and you're abusing the people you date, you're abusing women or men or whoever it is you're involved with, you're taking advantage of them, you're disrespecting them, you're using them. People are going to see that. And not only is it going to disrespect you, because we don't care if you're disrespected, you don't deserve respect if you're behaving that way, but it discredits the struggle. That's the problem, because most people, you're their only conduit to the struggle. They don't recognize that you're full of shit when you talk, that you're not really serious about it. They don't know that. They think that because you're incompetent and disrespectful and dishonest, that everybody in the struggle is incompetent, disrespectful, and dishonest. That's why it's so important to recognize that when you engage in this lifestyle, you're not just representing yourself. And people who are involved in organizing work know this, because you're accountable to other people. The only people that don't know this are those of you that are just individuals, because you're not accountable to anybody. So you don't understand it. You think you can just say or do whatever you want. You meet one person one day and someone totally different the other day. You can talk about respecting humanity at 12 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock, you can totally disrespect humanity. You can use humanity. You don't see anything wrong with that, because you're not involved in anything that holds you accountable. So you have to be engage in your life in a way that requires more of you that people can see. They're not going to tell you. No one's going to come and tell you, yeah, I see what you're doing. You'll have a few people to do that. But for the most part, people are going to be looking for ways to tear you down because you represent what they don't have the courage to be in their own lives. So you have to just understand that. And that can't be a deterrent for you in terms of you proceeding with the person that you're trying to be. And if you have youth in your life, and if you don't have youth, you should seek some out. But whatever youth you encounter, you have to be able to be creative in trying to create institutions that can show them that there's a different way that we can live this life. That's your responsibility. So if you get invited to dinner, don't be at war with the family, but say, hey, I have something I want to share at dinner this year. Only take 5 minutes, just designed to uplift the youth that'll be there. What are they going to say? No, we don't want to uplift the youth. The only reason why they would say that is because they don't respect you because of some past reactionary behavior you've just exhibited. But if you're, being honest, saying, hey, I want to really try to represent something positive, they're going to go along with that and then give you a chance to set the tone for the day that'll change it from that point going forward in a positive direction. And that's the kind of work that we want to see. That's the kind of work that we want to do. And so, you have to have, in order to have any of that happening, you have to have some strong communication that's going on. You can't make any changes with your family and friends if you don't know how to talk to them. You don't talk to them about anything, or when you do talk to them, 10 seconds after you open your mouth, they don't want to hear anymore. You can't make any changes if that's the reality. And the way that you communicate, it has to be humble. When I changed my name back in 1984, we thought this through, you all. We didn't just, because we're not people that do something one day and do something else the other day. So I just made some decisions when I did that. At 22 years old, I decided first I was going to change it. I wasn't going to use one name one time and another name another time, because to me, that encourages people to disrespect it, because you're not really taking it seriously. You're just using it when it's convenient. And when it's difficult, you don't want to have to deal with it. And I didn't want to be that kind of person. So I changed it. I went through all the processes to change it. That was the first thing. And the second thing I did is I said, people who deserve my respect in life, I am not going to, I'm going to be as patient as necessary with them. Because I recognized that my decision to do that, it wasn't just about me, Ajamu. This was a decision I made to make a contribution to our struggle, because I recognized even then at the tender age of 22, if I could get these people who know nothing about Africa, who respect nothing about Africa, to understand one little thing positive about Africa, my name and what it represents to our culture and our history as a people and our forward progress, that makes such a contribution to changing how they look at Africa. That's how I look at it. It had very little to do with just me as an individual, but I was already in the APRP then. I understood it from that collective perspective. And so I made that decision. I changed it. And at first, especially in those days, people, that's not your real name. And I would show them. And every single person I show them my driver's license. Oh, they have to respect that. Because by doing that, they knew, okay, he's not just coming here telling us this. When he goes to the European capitalist job, they have to recognize that. And they understood with the backward racist climate, especially then, that took courage on my part to do that. Because I went through hell behind that decision. Y'all, you have no idea. I went through hell. And everybody else who made that decision, people that came before me went through it. All you got to do is look at the videos of what Muhammad Ali went through when he changed his name from Cassius Clay. And you know that everybody that's done that has gone through hell. So people have to respect that. And that was one of the biggest things right there to push it forward. And with my parents, who were some of those people who I mentioned just now that I respected, I was going to be patient with, I never corrected them. They called Richard Jr. I never corrected them. Never once corrected them. And after 3 years, they got it. And they started by the time both of them died, I was a Jamu to them. They understood it. We had talked about it. They understood it. But my strategy was like, they deserve respect. It's not about me. I'm going to tell them. And then after a while, they began to, over time, they'd come to my house. They'd see mail on the counter. They'd see it was addressed to a Jamu Umi. There was no Richard Delhort there. So they start to, that's really your name. Yes, it is, Mom. Yes, it is, Dad. Like I've been telling you for 3 years. That's my name. It's no disrespect to you. See, Dad, my middle initial is R. That's out of respect to you that I did that. And after a while, they begin, when you have that humanistic approach, they begin to respect it. But again, the bottom line here is consistency, humility, and those things building on the communication. That's how that went down. But you can do all those things without compromising your principles. You don't have to compromise your principle just because you decide to be patient with people. You can be patient with people and still respect your principles. So you got to understand the difference between principles, strategies, and tactics. We've talked about that a number of times before, but I'll just say here, principles you cannot compromise. Those are the values that guide your life. And for me, my principles were and are and will be, as long as I live, that Africa is primary. The United Snakes is not primary to me. I don't give a damn about the United Snakes, besides the fact that this is the land of the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, whether they call themselves Mexican or Native or American Indian. This is their goddamn land, and they have a right to get it back. But beyond that, I don't give a damn about this place. I don't give a damn about it. I don't care what happens here. So I'm fighting for my people to make a contribution towards the liberation of Africa. And I know a lot of you don't understand that. And I don't give a damn if you understand it. I'm not, that's your problem if you don't understand it. My point is that that's my principle. That's the principle from which I live my life. So the other day I'm talking to these, white revolutionaries, and they're like talking about America. I'm like, I don't give a damn. I don't care. That's not my work. Well, you need to, no, I don't need that. That's you, what you need to do to your white people. I don't care what you do. We don't need you. You're not a part of our movement. Thank God you're not a part of our movement. We don't need you. We don't care what you do. We would like to see you get organized so that that's one less thing we have to deal with. But if you don't, we'll walk right over your chest. We're not worried about you. Because I don't buy your propaganda. I'm not a minority. I'm not minor to any damn body. We got 2 billion people on the planet Earth. We don't need you. We come from the richest continent on the planet Earth. We don't need you. All we need is organization. These are my principles, and they're based on socialism. We can't build nothing with capitalism. Never will compromise those principles. So since I know those are my principles, everything in my life is based on honoring those principles. For example, Shakur talked about the holidays. Look, we're not that shallow. We don't care. I get it. People want to have time to relax and do that. We're not saying don't have that. What we're saying is that we have to create alternatives to what currently exists, because these institutions that exist here are designed to keep us oppressed. So stop with this nonsense. Stop telling me I don't celebrate Christmas. I don't celebrate Easter. And everything you do is consistent with everything that the capitalist system has laid out for Christmas and Easter. Everything. You give presents. You do every damn, what the hell you mean you don't celebrate it? You do everything to celebrate it. Everybody comes in the door. They're happy Easter, Merry Christmas. I tell them, well, I don't celebrate that. Oh, I don't either. Yes, you do. Stop lying. You just said to me, Happy Easter. What the hell you mean you don't celebrate it? You are not that strong. You are perpetuating the values of capitalism, which are designed to keep us slaves to it. Like Shakur said, to keep us spending money on it. Like Shakur said, stop fooling yourself, because you're not fooling us. You are doing nothing but perpetuating this system. And so if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I could care less. But I'm saying, stop telling us, oh, I'm not doing that. Yes, you are. So if you really want to do something that contribute to ourselves, you gotta be courageous enough to say, I need to create something different. I can't just do this same crazy stuff and think that I'm making a different contribution because I look black, or I throw some greens on the table to go with the turkey and the cranberry sauce. Grow up. Let's get adult about this. We got to start doing things differently so that our children can know, okay, We are creating a different world. Greens on the table does not create a different world. There are values that have to go with what we do to create a different world. And we got to get courageous enough to start and creative enough to figure out what that looks like. And we have to establish clear parameters as to what those principles are. We have to do that. And what does that mean? That has to mean that, like at work, because a lot of you are just cowards. You know, I'm not no damn coward. So at work, they're like, well, we have these t-shirts. And they showed the t-shirt and they had a red, white, and blue. And I'm not wearing that. I ain't wearing that. Oh, what do you mean you're not wearing that? I'm not wearing that. I say the red, white, and blue gets within arm's length to me, it's getting set on fire. That's just a principle. I'm sorry. That's just, I don't even control my hands. When that flag comes close to me, my hands reach for matches and just click the match and set it on fire. There's nothing I can do. It's a cerebral response. It's a PTSD response. There's nothing I can do. The doctor said it's not treatable. There's no drugs for that. That's what I told them. You can ask people. I can give you witnesses were there. And people that know were snickering. And the people that didn't know were looking at me like, oh, you're crazy. And I'm looking at them like, no, you're crazy. Because you expect an African that's been stepped on by this system for 530 years to stand up and give respect to this flag. It'll never, I'll be dead before that happens. The only way you ever going to touch me with that rag is if I'm dead. That's the only way that'll ever happen. And even if you do that, I guarantee you, I'm going to get up out the grave and haunt you for the rest of your days if you put me in touch with that filthy rag. So you got to stand on your principles. And you have to establish a strategy for responding to the pressure, because there's going to be tremendous pressure on you. If you say my kids are not celebrating Christmas, like we did with Shakura, there's tremendous pressure on you when you make that decision. And you've got to be prepared for that. There's no way you're going to ever convince me you can do that by yourself. There's no way you can do any of this by yourself. You are going to give in, because if you were that strong, you would have freed the people by now. You're going to give in. I'm telling you right now, you're going to give into it. You're going to capitulate. You're going to be one of those people at the sporting event or the graduation or whatever the hell it is. And when they say, please stand and remove your hats, you're going to stand up. Most of you listening right now that I don't respect that flag. You go in there and you know damn well when they get to that point, your ass stands up, because you don't have it in you by yourself to wage that war by yourself. You got to get involved in some collective action to do that. You're not fooling us. You're only fooling yourself. Because I'm going to tell you right now, everybody that knows me knows I don't give a damn how many people it is. I don't stand up on that. I would never disrespect my ancestors that way. I don't care what, I'll fight everybody in the damn stadium before I disrespect my ancestor. They'd have to cart me out of there before I stand up for that nonsense. So you got to decide and prepare yourself mentally for that. I'm already prepared. Now, I'm not a fool. I don't want to just walk into unnecessary drama. So I have a strategy. When I go to games or whatever, I stay out there until after they do that. I don't even go out there until that's over. I try not to go out there because I already know I'm not going to stand. And, you know, you can get into it with people. That doesn't make sense to unnecessarily create conflict like that. So I don't even do it. But if I'm standing out there, I got a hat on, I'm not taking it off. I'm not doing anything to acknowledge it. I'm just standing there waiting for them to get through with that nonsense. And then I go sit down. So you got to establish your own strategy for how you're going to deal with this stuff. Notice we're not telling you what to do. We're not telling you, well, this is how you organize that's up to you. Because there are Christians here, there are Muslims, there are atheists, Jews. No, Pan-Africanists, socialists, anarchists, there's all kind of people. And all of that is valid. So we're not telling you what to do. We have if you want to know what we do, we can certainly tell you that. We can even do a separate workshop to tell you how we've organized things in our family. But we're just saying, if you want a better society, you got to decide you're willing to do things differently. And you decide what that looks like. We will tell you some healthy practices that can help you in that regard. So you have to learn how to develop positive communication. And that means you can't be talking all the damn time. Now, I know that we do this workshop every week, but anybody that knows me, you ask them when I'm in social situations, I'm not talking. I'm not talking hardly at all because I'm very introverted. I'm not talking at all unless I really know you and we're on a topic that, it's a specific topic. Yeah. But just generally in social settings, I'm not going to be the center of that. I'm asking people questions so I can get to know them better. So you have to learn positive communication skills so that you can learn how to understand what's going on with people. Because if you understand what's going on with people, then you can better understand how to interact with ways that resonate with them. But again, if you're just an individual doing this, you're not thinking like that. The only people that think like this are people that are, I'm trying to think of how to move in a certain direction to achieve a certain objective. That's what that's about. And then you have to establish, like I've been saying throughout my piece of this, your own set of customs. Now, again, if you have an organization, you're going to have some based on that. We have them. We have on Thanksgiving. We have African Liberation Day. We have Pan-African Women's Day. We have Nakba Day. We have some of those are African, some of them are Palestinian, some of them are indigenous. We have all of those that we commemorate, that Shakura was raised up commemorating. She wasn't raised up commemorating no capitalist holidays or nothing like that. So you have to develop your own. And I'm not telling you have to do the ones I just mentioned. You should, but that's not the point. The point is that you have to develop alternatives and you have to have communication with your family so they understand. Now, we did that. And as a result, many in our family, many of our friends began to want to incorporate a lot of what we do into what they do because they saw the value in it. They saw the pie. It wasn't a negative thing. It wasn't we hate white people. It wasn't anything crazy like that. It was about building up ourselves as human beings and building up all of humanity. So who wouldn't that resonate with except someone who's 100% sided with the capitalist system, which is nobody I know and interact with on a regular basis. So you have to develop those types of principles, y'all. You have to do that. And then you have to look for others who are attempting to establish healthy revolutionary families, communities, societies, and then you have to network and build with them. Again, got to keep saying it because you can't do this by yourself. You got to connect with people. That's how we build communities. And if you're like, I don't know how to connect with anybody, well, that's part of the problem. Do whatever you need to do to get better at that. Go to counseling. Do whatever you need to do to get better at that. It's not that there's anything wrong with you. The only thing wrong with you is you won't do anything to address the problem. Not that you have the problem. That's not what's wrong with you. The problem is that you won't do anything to get yourself out of your comfort zone. Instead, you rather sit up there and act like you know every damn thing. That's not getting us anywhere. It's not working for you or anybody around you. It's not working for the community. It's not working for the world. So we have to make decisions. If we want a better world, it has to start with us. We have to make decisions about what kind of people we want to be and what kind of changes we're willing to make. And then we have to be willing to make them. You're going to make a ton of mistakes. Don't worry about that. Everybody makes a ton. Only people that Secretary said it. The only people that don't make errors are people that don't do a damn thing. So stop worrying about making a mistake and start worrying about how you can become the person you keep telling yourself that you want to be. So we thank you for joining us today for this episode, and we invite you back next week, you all. We're going to do a program on May 7th, May Day and African liberation. May Day and African liberation. We're uniting those two very positive institutions. Tomorrow is May Day. Most of you will go through tomorrow, you won't do anything. You'll go through May 25th, African Liberation Day, you won't do anything. But come Easter, you go on to somebody, Christmas, and then you're talking about, I'm not with them. Yes, you are. Just by what I just described, if that's you, yeah, you're with them 100%. They don't need you to go out and put on a Santa Claus hat. All they need you to do is do nothing to resist their program. And by that very fact, you're with them. So join us next week. We talk about May Day and African liberation. Go to the Forward Ever shop. Take a picture for African Liberation Day 2023. Post it on social media. Our theme, neocolonialism, imperialism must go. Africans, get ready for revolution. Join us. Take a picture. Write that theme down. Write a picture and say, you don't have to be African. Just do it. It's a movement. And it's just so hard to get people to do anything. You always want to talk about what you want to see, but getting folks to do something, that's a simple act. Just do that. Do that. Go to www.abetterworld.me. Make a $20 donation to African Liberation Day. Go to aprp-intl.org and join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Now, that's really something. We really are asking somebody to do something there, but it's an ask that has to be made, and it's an ask that has to be answered. And participate in all of our programs. We have all on the screen. If you can see them there, they're wonderful programs. Wonderful, wonderful programs. We ask you to support them. African Liberation Day, May 25th, the international webcast, put that on your calendar. And, my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. In that book, I lay out all of the steps you need to take to do everything we talked about doing today, to creating a revolutionary lifestyle in your life. We can't tell you everything in an hour, but if you're interested in the things that we have done to create wonderful human beings like Shakura and many others in this world, then you should read the book. It's only $8, and all the proceeds go towards our liberation work. So you should do that, because again, you got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone if you want to create a new you. And a new you is absolutely necessary to create a new world. We can't create a new world with the old us. Just that math doesn't add up. So we thank you for joining us. We hope you have just the most wonderful rest of your Sunday afternoon. We love each and every one of you that stand for justice. And those of you that are listening because you want to sabotage our work, hey, best of luck to you, because we're going to keep going. So have a great rest of your evening. Forward ever, backwards never. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.